The road to virtue. In Plato's Meno, the story can be broken up into four main parts. The first one being the unsuccessful search for a definition of virtue, the second one being Socrates' proof that some of our knowledge is innate, the third one being a discussion on whether virtue can be taught, and the fourth one being a discussion of why there are no teachers of virtue. The dialogue starts off with Meno asking Socrates if virtue can be taught. This is followed by the more fundamental question posed by Socrates on how to define virtue and what it actually is. Due to the question Meno is posing, Socrates is challenged with a sophistic paradox, aka a paradox of knowledge. He's not quite sure how to go about this question. Therefore, he believes asking more questions will lead us to an answer. There are many recurring Platonic themes throughout this dialogue. One Platonic theme is the implementation of the Socratic dialogue in order to come to a conclusion. Socrates attempts to dissect the term virtue through the use of a Socratic dialogue. However, he only receives descriptions of virtuous things as opposed to an actual definition. Once tensions arise, Socrates realizes that no one can really claim to know the term's true meaning. This is also where we see the theory of anamnesis come in. The theory of anamnesis states that the soul is eternal and already knows everything. It only needs to recollect in order to learn new information. This is very clear in Socrates' part about the slave boy and the triangles. The slave boy is ignorant of geometry. With a scale model Elenchus, the boy is able to agree that adding vertical and horizontal lines on a square doubles its area. Back to the theory of anamnesis, this can also be correlated to Paulo Freire's banking concept, in which students serve as simply receptacles of learning.
Also, in this case, students have knowledge plugged into them without necessarily receiving anything in return from this method of teaching.
This will all then bring us to our main question that we are going to answer. The main question being, does gaining more knowledge allow for the adherence and/or retention of virtue? When asked to define virtue, Sidney Venable, a high school philosophy teacher, stated that it is a moral excellence and the pursuit of it. It's not a list of rules, but rather a type of character that is developed. Along the same lines, Bellalder, a college senior, states that virtue is anything you can do to become better. It is important to take what you know and apply it. This is on the contrary to the banking concept. Instead of just serving as a receptacle of knowledge, you are actually taking that knowledge and doing something with it.
This is as opposed to how Cayenne would define virtue, which is a trait or quality that is morally good and is as valued as a foundation of principle and good moral being.
Another way to look at it, Professor Sudan, a philosophy teacher at Boise State, believes virtue is taught indirectly, which can be called to action for a variety of teachers to be mindful of how they are teaching. Are they doing Freire's banking method or problem posing? Problem posing teaches more virtues throughout learning due to its complexity. My friend believes that virtue couldn't be taught because she believes that she didn't learn any virtuous skills. She only learned the content and wasn't physically taught virtue. She especially took the stance, I'm not smart enough to go to college, which I think if you don't see virtue indirectly through learning, you have the right to think that way.
How do you learn virtue? Virtue is not something taught directly, but is learned through education and experiences. When I asked my high school teacher, Josh, if virtue was innate, he replied with no. It is something that you learn over time by parents, teachers, and life experiences. When asking my dad, what does your degree mean to you? He replied with, it is the only way that he can have the job he has, but it is also something very important to him, because it shows he worked hard for his knowledge. This project taught me a lot. It was interesting listening to two college graduates and made me happy that I'm able to further my education at Boise State.
Be taught through experience. Therefore, it is important for people to take their experiences and learn from it. And in the long run, those experiences become knowledge. And with knowledge, you gain virtue.
Getting different perspectives on college, I learned that college can be one of the best times of your life. You can do so many things and get so many life opportunities through college. The important thing to get from it, though, is to get the degree that you have worked for and to get ready for a much greater life after college.
After doing the readings as well as conducting the interviews, I have come to the conclusion that more knowledge does not necessarily mean more virtue. Virtue is not innate, nor is it learned. Instead, it is acquired as you go through life.
After hearing other opinions on college, I thought more about what both of the people I interviewed said. I have come to the conclusion that a college education is very valuable. It is hard to get a degree, but if you can do it, then that is a huge accomplishment. College is an amazing opportunity, and if you have the character traits to get to attend college, then you shouldn't take that for granted.
What I've learned through my interviewees through this process is that virtue is not taught. It is not innate either. However, no person can single-handedly teach virtue directly like you would with mathematics and science. Virtue is taught through the knowledge and opinions you form from core subjects, as well as being taught something that will thoroughly make you evaluate your life. College is a great place to indirectly learn virtue. Likewise, you need to learn it through your own personal experience that you're currently having with college, as you must look past the content and find its true skill and value that you can take away and apply to your own life, as well as understanding why it's being taught a certain way rather than a different way.